Hello, I am your RusAme reader, Crow Song, and today I bring to you the binge comp for Handcuffs. There's a link to the Discord in the description. Feel free to join us. We have a lot of fun there. Now, on to the binge comp of all of the chapters. Chapter 1. Russia sat straight in his chair, glaring with his icy stare across the meeting room at a country who was slumped in his chair, clearly not caring about the meeting. Quite opposites, though that was easy to say at first glance alone. Really. The room was full of countries. The few missing to complete the group of countries were non-members of the United Nations, thus meaning they were not obliged to go to the United Nations obligatory meeting. An amazing loophole, really. All was silent, all because one nosy, bratty, capitalist pig had made a very specifically aimed comment. 2 minutes earlier. You want to attack me? Think twice. Russia stayed silent. He wasn't one to waste words. He simply tilted his head and made a hand gesture to demonstrate the phrase, "Go on." America grumbled, not having a threat. He was the type of person who jumped before looking. So, of course, he hadn't planned that far ahead. Russia nodded, knowing the other didn't have a comeback. And so, America, frustrated, got up to attack him, only to have Mexico tug him back in his chair. America, por favor, no. Realmente no vale la pena. That translates to, America, please don't. It's really not worth it. Yo, Mexico, mind your own business, will ya? America lashed out. Russia rumbled in some sort of dark amusement and looked at the American straight in the eyes. If looks could kill, this would be the most painful torture ever. Oh, but he is right, you pig, Russia provoked. Great Britain tried to get the United Nations to stop what was going on, but failed because... Back to present. America held his shotgun, aiming it at Russia, and keeping it aimed at the Russian. Sadly, weapons were not restricted in the meeting area, but not that many carried harmful objects on their person. America was one of the few countries who brought a weapon, always on edge and ready to protect himself if needed. Too many sci-fi, horror, or zombie apocalypse movies will do that to you. Well, that's what the joke was, but really, he just didn't feel at ease without one. The atmosphere was extremely quiet. Russia was staring at the ceiling, clearly aware of the shotgun aimed right at him. But his composure gave the idea that he simply did not care. But in all truth, if someone were to say Russia did not care if he died or lived, the Russian would not contradict said statement. Jamaica was sitting in a corner, smoking pot with a few other countries, such as Nigeria, Zambia, Bermuda, and Chile. All of which, of course, had brought their own marijuana, weed, and so on. The smoke began lightly spreading the room, reaching the closest to the group of smokers. United Nations was one of the people who the smoke reached first. United Nations looked around the room, clearly exhausted and quite disappointed with himself. So, with the lack of sleep and the weed fogging his mind just a bit, but enough to make him act rashly, he took out handcuffs and marched over to America, dragged the American to the Russian, and cuffed them together, and threw the key as far as he could. The key, thrown in a random direction, flew in the general direction of the chicken cage Vietnam had brought with him to the meeting, for he feared that somebody would steal his dinner during his absence. The key landed in the cage, and the chicken, not questioning to itself whether this was food or not, ate the key. Of course, a few countries saw, but the few countries who witnessed where the key landed all either thought that Russia and America were assholes, or that this was situatable justice to teach the two powers in the world a lesson. The lesson either being for past grudges or the fight. And now, I believe, is a good time to end this meeting. One last note before you all leave. Remember that traveling will be highly discouraged, so please do avoid visiting friends or family. America grumbled at that. Russia simply drank from his bottle and got up, consequently dragging America up with him. New Zealand ran straight up to America, passed him a formal-looking note, and shot a glance at Russia, and ran back to Australia, who had been holding his kiwi. The two then walked off, back to their respective homes together, since the two were siblings and lived quite closely to one another. America zoomed through the note. He groaned in annoyance, and passed the note to Russia, who ignored the American. Seeing that this was going to get nowhere, America started tugging Russia along towards UN, who was discussing some matter or another with NATO. Asshole, what are you even made of? Liquor and sandbags? Muttered the disheveled American upon reaching his destination. NATO glanced at the two, and then looked back at UN. We will continue this conversation later on, I do hope. UN spoke, beginning to walk off, feeling lightheaded. NATO then placed his gaze on the two countries. Seeing as United Nations, after much negotiation, has left to rest for what I presume will approximately be a day, I shall be the one to transmit the message in their place. NATO paused to take a breath and continued. You are not to take off the cuffs before the next meeting. If both of your attitudes towards each other have improved by the next monthly meeting, then we will see about removing the cuffs is acceptable. Now, good day. I have important matters to attend to, and discussing with two children is no longer my current preoccupation. And with that, NATO walked off as well, leaving the two red, white, and blue countries. America was the first to speak. So, my house or your house? Chapter 2. America waited, standing in the chilly air of Russia's territory, waiting for said Russian to open the door. Once unlocked and opened, Russia walked inside, continuing the silence that had been present during the entire walk to the house. America followed, and before he could take another step further, Russia stopped him and pointed at his worn-out and dirt-covered sneakers. America huffed, but obliged, and took off the sneakers with his feet, and nudged the footwear off to the side. Russia nodded and continued further along into his house, having taken off his shoes as well. America poked around, his eyes looking everywhere, absorbing in any information that he could. But what piqued his interest the most was the photos. They were everywhere. Photos of all of Russia's siblings, friends, which was very few, including only Germany, Switzerland, and North Korea, whom Russia tolerated, but only because he'd been taught to tolerate his allies. America, the occasionally clumsy bastard he is, accidentally bumped into a small table, almost knocking over a picture. Russia reacted quickly, grabbing the frame with its precious contents in it. He checked for any damage and placed the image back. Well, this is a surprise. Cold-hearted bitch Russia has objects with sentimental value, was the American's only remark, to which he earned a glare from Russia. America followed Russia, still taking every detail and storing it in his mind for future use. America was so distracted that he hadn't noticed when Russia had stopped walking. America crashed into Russia and flinched and fell backwards, prepared for his ass to meet the ground. The American opened his eyes in surprise when his arm, which was handcuffed, jerked up. Russia had pulled his cuffed arm a bit, just enough to stop the American from falling to the ground. Oh. Russia gave a forced smile to America and turned back to whatever it was he was doing. Unfortunately, America had to provoke Russia further. So you do care. And with that, Russia lifted America up as high as possible and let gravity take charge as he dropped him. America yelped and banged his head on a table stand. His eyes dimmed, his vision flickering, and fell unconscious. A small trickle of blood trailed off his forehead and dripped in tiny droplets, pooling on the ground around America's head. Russia only glanced at the sound and went back to the papers he was putting away. Russia suddenly did a double take and looked back and muttered a few colorful words in Russian. He lifted the American up, making sure the American was settled on his back, and carried America piggyback style to the bathroom. Russia pulled out a few bandages and bandaged the other country's head. I do not want to be chained to a corpse, Russia muttered once his task was finished. Now, all Russia did was sit against the bathtub and wait for a few hours. Once awake, America blinked several times, his vision still blurry. He looked around and reached out his hands, searching for nothing in particular. His hands met a warm figure. America was cold, the chilly air of the bathroom making his skin freezing. So he followed his instincts and crawled towards the source of warmth and curled up against it. With the warmth and growing headache, America fell asleep. Russia had fallen asleep, bored after an hour of waiting. He woke up 2 hours later with an person, clutching his arm and buried into his side. Russia frowned and shook the figure off. No, 10 more minutes. Russia growled softly in annoyance and shook America more violently. No. Russia was now, yet again, pissed. So he reached for a bar of soap and chipped a piece off and turned back to America. Russia then pulled America's mouth open and slipped the soap inside. Said American thought it was food and chewed it a bit. The taste made his eyes open as quick as a flash. He coughed and spit into his hand, which he then wiped on his shirt. He turned around, his vision now much clearer than before. His eyes stopped on a certain Russian who wore a neutral expression. But if you looked closely, you could see the smugness in his eyes. Asshole! It is mutual, America, replied Russia. The two sat in suffocating silence. Russia suddenly got up. Well then, I have a few movies you may find interesting enough to stay occupied for a few hours. With that, America got up, knowing better than to question what Russia meant by that. The two walked to Russia's basement, where Russia had a television, a small rug, and a sofa. A bit of litter laid around, remnants of when the Russian's younger siblings visited. America plopped down on the couch, and Russia was beside him. Russia pulled out his phone, put a pillow to act as a barrier between the two, and began working. Meanwhile, America used the remote to look through the few movies Russia had on the TV. Eventually, America settled for the movie Battle Royale and added the English subtitles. Russia looked up, remembering when Japan had shown him the movie. Russia was fairly certain she had gotten the movie from a rather suspicious library. Basically an illegal library where you can download a movie. But he had chosen not to question it. After all, if he made any objections to the movie and how Japan had obtained it, he would seem rather hypocritical. Chapter 3. Russia, 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 Russia. Asshole! What is it that you want, America? Russia calmly asked, clearly biting back many violent actions. Say, vessel. Will you stay silent if I do? Sure. Vessel. America burst out laughing. Russia frowned and turned back to his phone. America snickered and went back to watching the TV. He was extremely bored, having watched all the interesting movies on Russia's TV. All of a sudden, America's phone began ringing. Only one problem. It had fallen out of America's pocket, and it was out of his reach. Russia was quite aware of this fact. America knew that Russia was aware, and yet Russia chose not to get up, so that America may reach his phone. After a few tries, America finally turned to Russia with a small pout. You could at least move a bit so I could take the call. Russia looked at America with a rather cold stare. No, I do not believe I am obliged to move. America glared angrily at Russia, who returned his glare as well. Soon enough, America averted his gaze. America kept trying and finally succeeded at reaching his phone. His wrist was now completely red and had a few scratches. Russia glanced at America's red wrist. Your wrist, he simply stated. America glared at him. What about it? Russia looked America straight in the eyes. It is even uglier than before. America, fuming with rage, pulled out a pistol. But only then he realized he had only brought a shotgun and a spork to the UN meeting. And since the meeting, he had been unable to return home, where he left most of his firearms. Russia observed America, who was steadily going from, "I will legit shoot you and make you burn in hell," to, "Holy shitty motherfucking ass fucker shit. I left the States with my firearms," America screeched. Russia winced and saw Aditya poke her head through the door, thoroughly surprised. Russia shook his head and signaled her to go back to whatever she was doing before, along with the others. Russia then diverted his attention back to America. "It is not like they will have burned your home." America looked dead inside and said, "You have no idea." Under usual circumstances, Russia would not have agreed to go to America's home, but he was, unfortunately, much too curious by what America meant by, "You have no idea." And so, here they were, in front of the American's home. America opened the door. To Russia, all seemed quite calm, and that America was simply exaggerating, as the American always does. Oh dear God. Wisconsin? Where is Alabama? Wisconsin simply looked at America with pure terror in his eyes. A shout was heard in the distance, and California suddenly appeared on the second floor. Alabama appeared right behind California, holding 2 pump shotguns, several pistols, most of which were shoved in holsters, and an AK-47. He also had a smile of complete and utter glee. Alabama froze upon spotting America. Russia appeared neutral, as if this was a normal thing, and all was fine. But inside, he was shook. "Какого was the one thing he whispered. "Какого means what the hell in Russian. America sternly stared at Alabama, who slowly put the guns down, chuckling nervously. America grinned. "Who'd you hit?" Alabama grinned as well. "I shot Kentucky in the arm." "Great. That means you're responsible for bringing Kentucky to the hospital. And if she dies, it's on you." And with that, America walked inside, Russia following behind him, flabbergasted. America had brought Russia inside, and after some negotiation, with much arguing and maybe a knife almost stabbing America, though Russia will deny that he threw the knife at America, Russia agreed to stay at America's house so that the striped American could make sure his house wasn't burnt to the ground by his states. America had to explain to the Bronx why he couldn't go play video games with New York City, to which Russia only partially paid attention, too busy staring into the void. After that, America had laid on the ground, holding a kitchen knife close to him. Not that he did not trust Russia, it's just that he wanted to be prepared if Russia were to attempt murdering him or some shit like that. Russia did not have a weapon, but that didn't make him any less dangerous. He also knew of America's knife. From time to time, states would pop by, a few cities or boroughs as well, most to settle disputes or ask questions, others to tattle on something or another. America handled most of them in a joking manner, and some he would just arm wrestle to settle the dispute. Quite childish and stupid, Russia thought to himself. Of course, Russia stayed silent, maybe scoffing from time to time at the stupidest remarks. Russia's demeanor only pissed America off. At one point, a city, Atlanta, started complaining about Queens having shoved a small toy from a Catan board game down his throat, making him choke. And Queens came running, defending himself by saying Atlanta had punched Brooklyn before he made Atlanta choke. America tried to handle it calmly, but eventually made Georgia and New York deal with their cities. Lazy. America turned around, very close to punching Russia. Russia's disapproving look did not help much. When my siblings or republics would fight over stupid matters, I would make them choose. Fight a bear, spend the night outside, or not fight anymore. America finally snapped and punched Russia. Unfortunately, he had failed to remember the handcuffs, and Russia pulled on the chain, making the American's hand that was cuffed slap America. Russia then spun around, putting America in a chokehold using the chain from the handcuffs. As America reached for the knife, Russia kicked it away. Russia kept America in a chokehold until the American eventually lost consciousness. Russia released his hold on America and dragged him along as he shut the door, so that none of the states would come inside and see the questionable scene. Russia then sat on the floor against the wall. Soon enough, America had Russia's hand in a tight grip, sort of as if Russia's hand was a teddy bear. Russia attempted removing his hand from the capitalist's hold, but failed. So Russia simply settled for taking a picture of America cuddling the Russian's hand. And he sat there, waiting till the American awoke. Chapter 4. Russia began searching through his coat for any alcohol. At this point, he would even drink rum. Even whiskey sounded like heaven at this point. Luckily, he found a flask with some vodka. Russia grimaced as he realized the vodka was mixed with some water as well. After a few minutes, Russia saw that America was regaining consciousness. America's eyes fluttered open, and the first thing he saw was Russia's face. America, are you well? America groaned. No. Russia looked at America with a questioning look. Why? America looked at Russia and rubbed his sore throat. The Russian appeared indifferent as to the fact that he choked America, which was most likely the cause of the sore throat. Because the first thing I saw waking up was your face. Russia retorted, making a statement. You're fine. Bored, the two left the door closed, and America let Russia borrow his Nintendo 2DS. And America used his Nintendo 3DS. America demonstrated the basics of the device and handed Russia the mini chip with a game encoded in it. He put it in the Nintendo gaming slot thing, and the two began playing Pokemon. After 7 minutes of playing, Russia had caught a few Pokemon. America had caught many Pokemon, and they decided to do a battle. Well, in reality, it was rather that America decided and Russia was tricked into agreeing. After Russia had exclaimed a few swears in Russian, thrown the Nintendo on the ground, luckily it hadn't broken, America put the games away in fear for their safety. Pretty soon, it was night, and a few knocks could be heard from the door of the room. America moved to get up, but the handcuffs stopped him from getting further. Russia had chosen not to get up. Russia, I gotta go see what they want. Niet. We'll go get a few bottles of rum or whatever. Maybe I have some moonshine. America muttered the last part to himself. Upon hearing that, Russia stood up in a flash, slightly jerking America backwards. Russia swiftly opened the door, forgetting the American who was chained to him, and Russia ran around the house, searching for the kitchen. America bounded on the floor, desperately trying to avoid hitting walls, corners, chairs, states, cities, toys left lying around, and more. Once Russia had found the kitchen, America still wasn't in the clear. Russia pulled here and there, searching for alcohol. Beer, wine, rum, whiskey, moonshine, vodka, anything would do. Eventually, Russia had scavenged moonshine, found hidden behind a tile under the counter, some whiskey, marked for Texas, so Russia left that in the fridge, a Bud Light that America snatched for himself, and a bottle of vodka, gift from Belarus to Canada, but Canada doesn't really drink vodka, so he left the vodka for America. Content with his findings, Russia only then remembered America, noticing the scratches, the dirty and slightly ripped sheet under America, and the few bloodstains. Russia knelt down and helped America to a chair. Next time I go sledding, I'd rather not do so in my house, on a thin blanket, America exclaimed, seemingly not frightened or not having seized the fact that he could have been fatally injured. Russia opened his mouth to comment on how dangerous that was, and that America should have shouted at him so that they could have walked or ran instead of gone sledding, but Russia thought better of it and said nothing on that topic. America let out a hearty laugh and got up, beginning to limp towards the gathering states. Russia followed, holding very closely the precious alcohol. "Man, that was so cool!" exclaimed New Jersey. "Maybe tomorrow we could do the same thing," whispered an excited New York to New Jersey, who nodded. Both were wearing the silliest of grins. Seattle had come back inside. She was planning on sleeping in a tent outside, and in the morning she wanted to go for a hike. Curious from all of the noise. let out a laugh, and was ushered back outside by Washington State. After a few minutes, the states had, for the most part, wandered off. America checked every room, slowly turning the lights off, sang his goodnights, and Russia followed behind him, watching as the American limped along the halls. America, stay still. Russia had forced America to sit on the chair in the bathroom after he had found the first aid kit. It was quite awkward, but Russia eventually got the hang of disinfecting and bandaging the scratches America bore with one hand. America hissed in pain every time rubbing alcohol or disinfecting touched his injuries. It stung like hell, so I believe America was having quite an adequate reaction to the disinfecting process. Eventually, Russia was finished. America knew Russia meant well, and even if it was painful, at least none of the injuries would get infected. Thanks. Russia looked up, and America stared at his feet. What? Russia asked, clearly having heard what America said, but choosing to double-check just in case. I said thanks. America mumbled, slightly louder this time. Russia had a small smile on his face. Before America could notice, though, Russia turned away and hid the smile. America yawned, sleepy due to his completely whack sleep schedule, meaning he could stay up till 4 a.m., feel sleepy at 3 p.m., or fall asleep at any random moment, in short. Once Russia turned back to face America, it was too late. America had already fallen asleep. How can you be sleeping? You slept for at least 5 hours today, Russia whispered, confused. Yet Russia still chose not to wake America up. He picked the American up and placed him on his shoulder, not really caring if America woke up. Russia began walking through the hallways, searching for the country's room. Once found, there was a mini sign with America written on it, along with a few other inscriptions, most likely written by the states or cities. Russia walked inside and tossed America on his bed. Russia settles on the floor, his wrist lightly hanging in the air due to the handcuffs. The Russian took a sip from the moonshine just to taste it and put it down. It wasn't the best, but the moonshine was strong. And with that, they slept in the pitch-black room. Chapter 5. America had woken up at around 3 a.m. He awoke quite easily to the sound of soft snores coming from the other side of his bed, where Russia lay. He moved his arm that was cuffed and swore. Fuck! Russia shuffled from the floor and America shut his mouth. Internally, America was screaming. His arm was asleep, and it hurt like fuck to move it. The fact that he was chained to Russia most likely wouldn't help the matter either. America shifted his arm again, but this time he moved his arm slightly less than last time. Slowly, yet surely, the arm began to wake up, and once the arm was no longer asleep, America sighed in relief, Then, being able to comfortably move without his arm or legs or any body part being asleep, the American patriot could comfortably reach out his non-cuffed hand and grab his phone. At about 5:30 a.m., Russia woke up, the only sign of consciousness being the lack of small snores. America noticed this and set his phone down and looked at the alarm clock that now read 5:31. America, greeted the groggy Russian. America slid off the bed to plop down beside Russia. The chain made a few metallic clinking noises during the movement. "What's up, Russia? Why'd you sleep on the ground? Couldn't grab a pillow or something?" Russia groaned. On his list for things he didn't want in the morning, being bombarded with questions was the 5th thing on the list. He tugged on the handcuffs, resulting in America getting slapped by his own hand. Luckily, America got the gist of what Russia wanted. Or at least he understood for 2 seconds. 'Cause 3 seconds later, the questions continued. With a groan, Russia sat back and rubbed his eyes with one hand, and endured the questions in silence. Alaska came running into the kitchen, having a net with a few fish. Russia looked at the fish, mouth watering a bit. America looked up from his iPad, on which he was using to read New York Times. "Alaska, don't dump the fish down somebody's shirt again. Otherwise, have fun." After the comment made by America, Alaska rushed off, bearing a sly grin. Russia looked at America as if the American was incredibly stupid. Of course, Russia thought America is very stupid, but that is besides the point. A few arguments later. Russia and America both sat, feeling rather dejected. Russia with a bruised eye, and America with a bloody nose. Canada and Belarus stared at the two, Belarus having been speed-dialed by Canada. The only reason the Canadian and the Belarusian were over at America's house was because Canada had the suspicion that something was happening at America's house while he was exchanging skiing techniques with Richford. Once at his brother's home, Canada had opened the door to see Russia and America doing the best one-handed fist fight they could, being chained together and all. Canada had speed-dialed Belarus, who came over in a flash. America looked up and asked the one question that him and Russia both yearned for the answer to. "Nada, why do you have Belarus on speed dial? Why is she also one of your most contacted contacts?" It's not like you two are dating or anything, dude. Canada sheepishly glanced at Belarus, who copied Canada's sheepish glance. "Right on then. Here's some, how do you say, oh, okay. That means get the hell out of my home. And I tried my best on that. I'm sorry if I butchered it." America exclaimed, clearly proud about having remembered the phrase from French. America also grabbed Sutton from behind Richford and tossed Sutton across to Canada. Canada thanked America and Russia and then left, holding Sutton as if Sutton were a sleepy child. Russia looked at Belarus, smirking, and she stuck her tongue out at the smug Russian. She then left, blushing, and joined Canada and the small innocent beings as they walked off, hand in hand. America looked at Russia, clearly very confused as to why Belarus had behaved strangely. Russia smirked as he looked at America. "Your brother is dating my sister." And with that, America fainted. Russia scoffed and shook the American back awake, earning a kick to the stomach. And America rather rapidly called Japan to inform her of the news. Russia also called Kazakhstan to inform him that he, Russia, had won the bet of when Belarus and Canada would get together. Chapter 6. Well then, America had spent an hour being deaf due to Japan before, and that was during a birthday party when America got Japan a rare copy of a magazine. Yowie. Right. Continuing with the story. Her screech had been so loud it had made America only hear ringing for an hour. So imagine the screech Japan made when she heard of Canada and Belarus dating. Even Russia spent a few minutes having trouble hearing. America spent half the day not being able to hear out of his right ear, which was fun. But America, truth be told, preferred being able to hear out of both ears. So, yeah, as said before, fun. And so, as the two waited for their hearing to come back, they played Connect 4. America had gotten up, Russia followed close behind, and America got the game from the shelves filled with games such as Jump Ropes, Battleship, Settlers of Catan, and a few Nintendos, Twister, and more. There were also a few linguistic games where the game could help learn a certain language, but America went for the Connect 4. Russia won almost every round, America only winning from time to time. Many states and cities and so on went outside, either playing in the backyard or using bikes, scooters, rollerblades, skateboards, and so on, to take a stroll outside. A few went to get bagels, others went to the park lake to give the ducks old lettuce that nobody else would eat, and stare at the fish and the birds. The rest did stuff. So, in short, America and Russia were alone in the house, with the exception of one or two of the states who decided to lock themselves in their rooms, being the introverted vampires that they are. Also COVID-19, but in all honesty, introverted vampires is a much better description. Well, that is, in the author's opinion. The readers can take whichever definition they prefer. Russia looked up at America, who grumbled and gave Russia $10 for the win. Russia put the money away, planning on transferring the money to Belarus so that she may use the American currency and exchange it for Canadian currency. So that way, if she ever visited Canada in his territory, she could buy things she wanted to. Admittedly, it wouldn't be much so that she could buy, but oh well. At one point, the two countries forgetting the how and why, Russia and America began playing a shot game. In short, it's truth or be slapped. But instead of a slap, you have to drink a shot. America explained the rules to Russia, just to be clear that the two understood the rules. Okay, so to be clear, I'll ask you a question, and you have to respond truthfully, alright? And if you lie, you have to take a shot, okay? Russia nodded, quite bored, and simply wanting to get drunk. And the same applies to me. I call dibs on the first ask. America shouted towards the end, the first part of his phrase being muttered under his breath. Russia shrugged. Quicker he gets drunk, quicker he's happy and doesn't question his reason for being alive. America thought for a few seconds and grinned. What's your favorite activity? Ignoring you. America pouted. My turn. Are your sunglasses some sort of protective blanket for you? America tensed up. No. Russia shot a dark look at America and tried grabbing the sunglasses from America, who leapt back, punching one fist at Russia's face. Obviously, he missed. Russia bore a knowing look as America drank a shot of liquor. And so the game continued, Russia taking much more than a shot every time he answered a question wrong. Soon enough, the two were drunk as fuck. America beginning to pour every bottle of alcohol he could get his hand on within the restricted area. For Russia refused to move, meaning America got a little over 4 liters of liquor, but didn't get over 7 either. Soon, the one question everyone dreads at these sorts of activities popped up, and America was the one to ask it. Russia, do you like anybody? The American slurred. Chapter 7. Russia looked at America, eyes intensely observing the American, calculating whether the striped country would remember or not what Russia was about to do. After all, Russia has a high tolerance of liquor and alcohol, meaning that even if he was drunk as fuck, by the usual standards, he was quite accustomed to this and eventually developed an ability to remember events of when he was drunk. If he had consumed double of what was used during the game, he would have passed his tolerance limit. But back to the topic at hand. Judging that it was quite unlikely that America would remember anything, Russia leaned forwards, scooting towards America, who noticed nothing. Russia sighed, then hugged America, setting his head on America's shoulder. After a few seconds, Russia pulled his head back, now facing America, their noses barely touching. It's now or never. Russia went forwards and rapidly placed a small kiss on America's lips. You have no idea for how long I've wanted to do that, Russia said, slurring a tiny bit, and his accent making him much less comprehensible than usual. Okay, so maybe he wasn't thinking all too straight. Oh well. What difference does it make anyway? Not like his father could do much to protest anyway. The guy was dead. America began giggling. It started getting creepy to like horror movie level creepy. Suddenly, America pounced on Russia and latched himself onto Russia, putting their cuffed hands in some pain. America nuzzled his face into a surprised Russia's shoulder. Russia, I love you too, America mumbled, still slurring his words. At that, Russia had a grin break out, and rather awkwardly got up, still carrying America, stumbled to the American's room, and finally tripped on a book America had left lying around on the floor of his room. Russia hit his head, which most likely was what stunned him, making him go limp. But make no mistake, although Russia appeared to be asleep, he was awake, not asleep. America ended up in the same state of mind as Russia, and the two laid on the ground, giggling like idiots. Canada called multiple times, each time the phone going to a voice recording of a message saying, "Yellow, call me back some other time. I'm currently doing something." Canada eventually called Mexico. Canada and Mexico used to be together a long time ago, but the two eventually ended up not working out all too well. Luckily, they remained wonderful friends to this day. So, oh well. America, hello? Mexico called out from a window. He sighed and put on an old, tattered, worn-out glove with which he used to open the door. Not locked. Mexico wandered through the halls, calling out occasionally. Eventually, he made his way to America's room. Opening the door, again with the glove, Mexico didn't see anyone. Not at first. Then he looked at the ground, purely by accident, and saw it. "Dios mío!" Mexico exclaimed. "Means my God." If I may remind you, he was one of the countries with a front row seat to the fight at the UN meeting just a few days ago. But after a third look, Mexico began laughing. I mean, you would too if you saw one of the most intimidating countries ever, Russia, lying on America in a rather compromising position. Plus, the Russian was drooling, so was America. But Mexico knew from all the parties America went to that if America drank too much alcohol to the point of being in some sort of paralyzation, he almost always drooled. However, it was quite comical to see Russia on top of America in the position and state of mind that they were currently in. So, yeah, Mexico took a few photos, which he sent to Canada. Canada then sent it to Belarus, and the two had a good laugh at that, Of course, feeling much better that the two, America and Russia, weren't dead yet. Honestly, many countries were betting money on the two opposing countries would have killed each other within the first day of being handcuffed together. Mexico left quietly, closing the door, and left the house. Chapter 8. When Russia finally went back to his usual state of mind, the first thing he knew was pain. Immense pain from one of the biggest hangovers he had ever had. Well, unless you count the ones he had at the age of 3 and 7, but hush. What the police don't know won't hurt 'em. Anyways, being hungover and the main pain protruding from his head, Russia got up, not noticing the fact that he had been lying on America, with a hangover masking the slight discomfort by the handcuffs. Russia walked out of the room, still completely oblivious to the American he was dragging along. Yet again. The few states that were already awake, or simply refused to sleep, just looked at the strange pair. Once in the kitchen, Russia found some vinegar and coffee. He mixed the two and drank a bit. Within the next few minutes, the Russian was much more clear-minded. With a pang to his supposedly non-existent heart, he remembered the events of yesterday. He also took a quick sniff at the air and remembered he hadn't washed or changed within what he supposed was approximately a week. Oh well. With a glance to the American lying on the ground, he thought for a few seconds. Hose? Sure. Like when I was a kid. His lips turned up just a teensy bit at the thought of his childhood. The good parts, mind you. He chose to ignore the darker part of his childhood memories. America groaned. Russia grabbed what remained of the vinegar coffee drink, pinched America's nose, resulting America to breathe forcefully through his mouth. Russia then shoved some of the drink down America's mouth. America gurgled a bit, spitting out some of the drink, but drinking most of it. Russia watched, not all too intrigued, as America coughed and slowly got over the more intense parts of the hangover. America turned around and tugged on the handcuffs, making Russia, who was not at all prepared for this sort of reaction, trip and fall on the ground, head landing on America's stomach. Soft. Asshole, get off of me! America gurgled, not angry, more confused. Russia only removed himself after 7 minutes, during which the red and white striped country struggled and complained. The only reason Russia had gotten up was because he had heard footsteps. He quickly pulled America to his feet and sat on a chair. New Mexico walked into the room and grabbed some food from the fridge. She glanced over at the two countries, went back in the fridge, and tossed a Corona beer to America. She closed the fridge and walked to a box of donuts stored on the highest shelf. She scrambled up the counter, going to the point of standing on the counter. Russia sat there, staying silent during the entire silent conversation America had with the state. She grabbed a donut, threw it in her mouth, and tossed the box to America, and mysteriously as New Mexico had come, she had left. America smiled immensely, inhaled 3 of the 5 remaining donuts, and offered 2 to Russia. Donut? America offered, mouthful. Russia shook his head. May we go to my house, America? I have work to do. Russia politely asked, even though he was going to go either way. America shrugged and got up. America then climbed up Russia, using only one hand, the one cuffed hanging limb. America, no. America clung to Russia. America, yes. Nobody's forcing you to go to your house, and I don't feel like walking. Russia groaned at the childish response he had received. Fine. Never again, though. Russia spat out. America grinned and snuggled into Russia's neck. The Russian put one arm up and on the American patriot for support, and left the American's house. As the two were walking, Russia was walking, and America continued clinging on like a koala to Russia. They encountered Scotland and Ireland. The 2 men were holding hands and receiving many stares from the few people outside. But not because of the gay part, simply because of the coronavirus spread. Passerbys thought it was horrible, and because they were holding hands, if one had COVID, the other could have COVID now, and so on. Hey, Russ, I can see the little American bastard clinging to you, Ireland cheerfully exclaimed, not minding if other people heard. Scotland grinned. Yeah, what did you do to him, lad? I've never seen America be so... Scotland thought for a few seconds. Docile. America turned his head to face the 2 alcoholic countries and stuck out his tongue. Am tired, America mumbled. Russia stopped walking. Suka, you spent the last days doing nothing and sleeping. Suka translates to bitch in Russian. Oh, yeah, meh. America shrugged Russia's comment off. You gonna get laid today, America? Ireland asked, looking from Russia to America. Was that an offer? America responded, his tone sounding rather flirtatious. Russia's eyes widened. He shouted in Russian, quite obviously.
Сука, ты никого не трахаешь, пока мы в наручниках.
The translation for that is, bitch, you are not fucking anybody while we are still handcuffed. That being said, Scotland's first reaction was to pull Ireland close to him and kiss him rather deeply. His second reaction, once the 2 pulled away, and Scotland gazed lustfully into Ireland's eyes, was to say, "The only one getting laid, yeah, lad, love, is me." That earned a chuckle from Ireland, and the 2 ran off without saying goodbye, Scotland clutching the bag of groceries he had gotten. What just happened? America whispered. Russia, not as shocked, continued walking once the 2 others had run off to one of their homes for a little fun time session. Right. Russia, finally getting to his home's door, got the keys out of his pocket, slightly tugging on the handcuffs, causing America to cling even tighter with the one free arm he had to not fall off. Suddenly, a rather loud shout caught Russia's attention. America perked his head up, signaling that he, too, had heard the sound. Russia walked over to the source of the noise, which just so happened to be located on the other street, at China's house. Unsurprisingly, China was at his door. North Korea was standing at the gate of China's garden, which led to the place China called home. South Korea, as well, stood there besides his brother.
朝鲜可以来，但是韩国你就待在外面走吧。
That means North Korea can come, but South Korea you will stay outside and leave. South Korea began complaining, making it rather clear that with his argument that the two had been arguing for some time now. North Korea rolled his eye, but put one hand on his brother's shoulder.
한국 부탁드립니다.
That roughly translates to South Korea, please. South Korea appeared suddenly rather torn. After all, North Korea only rarely said please. Finally, South Korea gave in. Fine, but be back before midnight. Please, brother, South Korea said. North Korea shook his head, clearly planning on disobeying his brother's orders or requests. North Korea ceremoniously opened the gate, closed it, and walked over to China and reached his hand out to hold China's hand. And with that, the two walked inside the house. "Oh, hey, Russia! Hello, America!" South Korea happily exclaimed, hiding his nervousness. The only sign of the Korean being nervous was from how much he was biting his lip, and the uncertain look in his eyes. But shush. "Heyo, South! Want to join me and Russia here?" Russia glared at America. Will Japan be there?" America thought for a few seconds. Russia, clearly seeing no way out of South Korea coming with them to his house, decided that the two bored countries were worse than one bored country, and two occupied countries. So, with the plan to invite Japan so she could distract South Korea, and hopefully America as well, while he did his work, he said, "Call her." And the three walked to the Slav's home, South Korea texting Japan. Chapter 9. Upon arrival at the Russian's home, Russia opened the door, having already unlocked the door. Inside, it was dark as hell, so South Korea reached out a hand and turned on a light. Now, Russia led the two countries, America sticking close to Russia. This time, it was South Korea's turn to gape at the inside of the Russian's house. Not many went into the Slav's home, unless it was for a business meeting or such. So, in short, South Korea had only gone inside Russia's house once before, but that was a very long time ago. So, yeah, the Korean was quite curious. After all, only countries who voluntarily came here other than Russia, and a few of his siblings, were Japan, China, North Korea occasionally, Vietnam came over, and a few others. And finally, there was India, who mainly on very special occasions, or more commonly, for discussions and matters concerning their relations, military, political, economic, and otherwise. Now that the useless filler is over, I'll get back to the story. Anyways, Russia was walking down a hallway when he walked beside a closet. Japan. I waited in the closet, awaiting Russia, America, and my lovely South Korea. I heard their footsteps and had to put my hand over my mouth to stop my giggles from being heard. 3, 2... Oh shit! I suddenly jumped out of the closet. Well, shit. I failed my prank. I looked at South Korea, who appeared to slightly jumped. Oh, maybe I didn't fail completely. Third person. As Japan burst out of the closet, South Korea did a little jump in the air. Russia remained unfazed, and I would be quite the liar if I said America didn't burst out laughing after he, too, jumped. Russia moaned in despair, already predicting that having allowed Japan to be invited was a mistake. But unless nobody knows how to turn back time without a device that doesn't require a material to go through the quantum realm, or won't require a hot tub, a vengeful cyborg man with a teddy bear, a flying car, or superpowers, do tell! With a heavy sigh, Russia shifted, put America in a position that would allow the Russian to carry the American in a more comfortable manner, and the four walked off. South Korea and Japan holding each other's hands. Japan tugging the Korean along. After about 3 hours of work, Russia finally gave up and joined in with the silly antics of the three countries. Japan grinned at Russia, who finally agreed to join their games. What is the game, Japonia? Russia tiredly questioned. The English for that is Japan. Japan smiled and opened her mouth to speak. Suddenly, South Korea lurched forwards and kissed Japan as she was about to say, "Oui." Once South Korea leaned back, heavy blush coating his face, Japan imitating him. "Oh, I forgot about that, dear," she whispered. Russia looked at America, who was having the time of his life, laughing at the two Asian countries. Southie here was dared to kiss Japan if she spoke. America squealed, tears leaking from his eyes. Russia frowned. Truth or dare? America nodded, confirming Russia's suspicions that that was the game being played. Russia, you just joined, so you'll be the first dared. Honestly, Russia had no idea how the other countries, who were now sitting in a circle on the floor of his living room, had gotten here. 'Cause now, not only was Russia, America, Japan, and South Korea in his home, but there was also a rather red-faced Ireland and a smug-faced Scotland. Ireland and Scotland both wore the same clothes from their run-in with Russia and America, only now their clothes were all messy and ruffled and slightly covered with dirt. And a few other hints that demonstrated the two's most recent activities, but hush. And finally, there was also Germany, who had a lot of fun with driving on the almost completely empty roads. He legit drove above the speed limit whenever he got the chance. And then you had Poland, who was still quite shook from the car ride with Germany. They had wanted to invite Jamaica so that they could be smoking the reefer, but at that point, Russia had put his foot down and said no more countries could come over. And then you had Georgia, who was clearly confused as fuck, come upstairs. Stalin had items poking from their bag, and almost immediately, Armenia, with a sadistic grin, broke a window out of the living room, screaming, "Distraction!" allowing the Georgian to escape with stolen goods. The Armenian soon followed suit. Eventually, it was decided that America and Russia being handcuffed together was quite boring, so somebody left and got a spare handcuffs key and uncuffed the two. With a click, the handcuffs fell to the floor. Russia instantly grabbed the shackles, got up, and ran to put them on the highest shelf of an armory. America did nothing to protest. He then ran for the bathroom and took a quick shower. During the time the others had looked at Russia, see, they all knew why he had been handcuffed to America. "You will have to put those back on, you realize," the Scotsman stated. Russia nodded and went to his room to change. Once the two had come back, the games continued. Chapter 10. Russia had gotten bored. Everybody, all so into the game that people were now currently playing, Clue, barely noticed the disappearance. Ireland didn't seem to understand the game and had begun to shout, and Japan had set up a movie on her computer occupying those who weren't committed to playing the game. So it is quite easy to say that Russia slipped away with much ease. After Russia had escaped, he went straight for the door, walking, and grabbed his bike. The Russian then began pedaling towards an old building, about 1.5 kilometers away from his home. The reason for him to rush away like this was for some silence. Once at the old building, closed down due to obvious reasons of the north face of the building having been utterly destroyed due to an earthquake a few decades back. So yes, the structural integrity of the building was quite feeble, but the south side of the building was strong and had lasted for a long time. Russia, having made this area his happy place, surrounded by a forest from one side and a prairie on the other, had clearly gone more than just once or twice, for he knew where to step and where not to step, and how to avoid falling and getting hurt. Unfortunately, the American following him did not. Small flashback. America was laughing at some ridiculous joke Poland had made without knowing, after Germany had slyly roasted Japan. He leaned back, expecting his back to encounter Russia's shoulder, but instead, the American fell on the ground. Looking around, America saw that the front door and softly and silently shut. Getting up, he followed. South Korea looked up, seeing America go outside. "Where are you going?" "Outside. I'll be back soon. South, don't worry." South Korea nodded and went back to the conversation. America saw Russia, already on his bike, cycling away. America ran over to the garage entrance of Russia's house. After some searching, he found an old, slightly rusted skateboard. With a shrug, America took the skateboard, determining the rust not to be all that bad, and took off after Russia. America couldn't help himself and grinned. It had been some time since he last used a skateboard, and the feeling was wonderful as ever. Back to present. Russia made his way to the roof of the building, and once at the top of the south side, he sat on the edge and gazed at the forest and prairie. Finding a few pebbles, Russia chucked them as far as possible, not caring all too much where it landed. America let out a few heavy breaths, not completely accustomed to walking in ruins anymore. He had once walked through ruins, even run through them, but that was a long time ago, and America did not wish to re-experience such horrors, even if it all ended in peace. Once having gotten to where Russia was, America being only 3 feet away from Russia, a small piece of cement chipped away, and America tripped forwards. The North American country tumbled forwards, heading headfirst off the side of the building. Russia only just now noticed America. Eyes wide, with quick reflexes, Russia reached out his hands and grabbed America's hand. Yet the American only did a flip, so now, if he fell, it wouldn't be head first, it would be feet first. America had been screaming during the whole entire stumble and fall, and now that he was hanging by his arm, Russia, the only lifeline that could prevent him from flying straight for the ground, his mouth was set on mute due to shock. Russia had to let go of America, now only one hand holding America instead of two. The reason was because Russia would have been pulled off if he didn't have a support. America had shut his eyes closed in fear, some tears squeezing out. Russia slipped slightly forwards. The bandages hiding his wrists tore from the rough surface of the building. When the wind blew, the bandages fluttered off, revealing his wrists invaded by thin slits and a shit ton of scars, all a week old or more. So now, a quick summary. America fell off a building. Russia was holding onto the American with one hand, and Russia's wrists were now quite visible. And on the Russian's wrists were old cuts, approximately a week old. Russia, with a loud grunt, began pulling America back up. With so many scrapes, the American patriot was pulled back up. Russia let out one last grunt and pulled America back up, the Russian slowly switching his position to be sitting on his ass and leaning back. Due to the forced change of effort, likely those on the losing side of a tug of war, America lurched forwards, and Russia, falling backwards, banged his head on the ground. However, sitting in pain, clutching my head, would have to wait. Russia leapt up and grabbed America. Screaming at the American bastard would have to wait as well. Russia slung America onto his back and made his way to remove himself from the ruined building. America, having scraped death so closely before, or intense harm, had a different reaction this time, like when the Japanese Empire had attacked him in World War II. His reaction was to retaliate with an even bigger amount of violence. This time, America had laid frozen, eyes squeezed shut, with tears falling from his face. But not many tears, just 1 or 2 every minute, streaking down his face. America was also shaking, just a tiny bit. Finally, out of the building, Russia set America down on a rock. And with that, Russia began his rant, pacing back and forth. America, dear idiot! What did you think you were doing? Following me? Did you want to die? The Russian was, America, you idiot. Russia was cut off short when America snaked his arms around Russia's waist. Looking up, America opened his mouth to speak. However, words did not come out. Russia remained angry, still stressed. My states. Russia, hearing the shaky, quivering whisper, the Ushanka-wearing country knelt down. Can't leave. Not now. If I'm gone, who will take care of? And with that, Russia understood. America was acting so unusually fearful compared to his usual self, was afraid that if he, the boisterous American one, should die, the states and cities would be alone, especially in these troubling times with COVID and all. America, should you be gone, I will watch your states, and Canada and Mexico as well. You need not worry. Russia attempted to comfort the shorter country. Slightly reassured, but still speaking in a soft whisper, and tears falling, America asked, Russia, do you love me? Russia leaned back. Why this question? Well, since the thing with the game, and when we both got really drunk, you've been nicer than usual. And also, Canada accidentally sent me a picture he says Mexico took. Russia's eyes widened. Why were we always fighting, Russia? America continued. Russia sighed. With something growing inside his chest, not literally, of course, and with the butterflies inside, Russia opened his mouth to say, because I had a fuss. And it is not normal since we are supposed to be enemies. So I always do my best to try and tick you off. And it's stupid, I know, but it is life. Every time I said I hated you, I wanted to say I love you. It was all lies, and then came the handcuffs, and, well, we kissed, and you told me that Russia was cut off. Chapter 11. As Russia had been speaking, America had shuffled to be in front of Russia, to better face him. However, America chose to be an ass and not let Russia finish speaking, or rather, ranting. America had jumped onto Russia and kissed him. Admittedly, it was not the best kiss America had ever had, but oh well. With a silent Russia who was trying to comprehend what had just happened, America hugged the tall Slav. Thanks, America muttered. Then, America, having returned to his usual bubbly attitude, got on his skateboard. Russia, race you to your house. Russia blinked several times and shouted, "Shutozaya!" That roughly translates to, "What the fuck?" Thanks, Wattpad comment section, for that pronunciation. America cackled. Yep, that is the normal, annoying as shit, America. Russia did not respond and chose not to participate. He walked casually to his bike. Russia was first to get back to his home, America arriving only a minute later. Russia smirked. I win. And with that being said, Russia walked back inside the house, the American following quickly behind him with a bit of grumbling. Once inside, however, America collapsed on the nearest couch and went straight to sleep. Russia slyly began dropping hints that he wanted everybody who did not live in the house to leave. It took about 10 minutes, but the household had been completely emptied out. Now, the only life forms other than the 2 or 3 cats that lived independently in Russia's home was Russia, America, who was sleeping. Russia retrieved the handcuffs and picked America up, bringing him upstairs to the guest bedroom. Russia dumped the capitalist onto the rough bed. After a few moments of hesitation, pecked the American on the forehead. Russia left the room, small blush on his face, and shut the door. He then took some time to check his messages on his phone as he sat outside the door of the room. From Finland to Russia. CC, nobody. Greetings, asshat. You are with the American bastard now? Romantically involved? According to Mexico, you are. Don't murder the Mexican. You would fail anyways. He did not send me this. Downloading image. Russia clenched his fist. He absolutely hated Finland. Something inherited by Soviet, his predecessor. However, the two, on very rare occasions, got along well enough, such as for economic discussions. Sure, they were civil, but if the other was on fire and they had a cup of water, they would drink the water. Carrying on, Russia sat at the door, deciding to do the most work possible. After that decision had been made, he got up and went right to his working area, or workspace. Going down the hall, the Russian only noticed how dark it had gotten outside. The sun no longer threw its rays through the window panes, for the moon had begun to poke its beautiful face out in the sky. Russia went into the last room, where a computer, a desk, and a chair waited for him. He sat at it and turned on the computer. With that, the Slav began to work. Waking up in utter darkness, with the creepy sounds of a tree branch scraping against the window, was not fun for America, especially after the near-death experience. And of course, America was too frightened to step off the bed, terrified by the thoughts in his head. The floor tumbling away, making me fall forever. A creature under the bed grabbing his ankle and pulling me into a painful death. God, if it only weren't painful. millions of tiny critters crawling out from under the bed to eat me. America? America shot back up and twisted around, getting tangled in the sheets. Soon enough, he twisted and turned until he plopped right off the bed. With a heavy thud as the American fell, Russia calmly walked towards the fallen American. America was completely still when Russia tried to help America, placing his hand where he assumed the shoulder was located. America began to writhe as if he were possessed, convulsions shaking his entire body. Slowly, America's movements got slower and more sluggish. Russia's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. America had twisted the sheets in such a manner it choked his neck, giving him trouble to breathe and have his airways pass through his lung, or choked on spit, maybe. Clearing out the area from a few books and the sheet America had been tangled in, Russia began giving CPR, waiting until he could hear something or see a movement from the American prick. He faintly remembered something Belarus had shown him, that she had been shown by Canada, who had discovered it thanks to the American. Staying alive, America did his eyes flutter. There it is again. Okay, and again. Staying alive. America groaned. Water. Getting what America was attempting to say, Russia jumped up, gently taking America in his arms, and ran to the nearest water faucet. With cupped hands filled with water, Russia tried having America drink. Unfortunately, all the water dripped out before America could be reached. Russia looked around again, still no cups in sight. A few rags littered the counter. Oh well. Russia wet the rag and rushed back. The Russian leaned over America, squeezing the rag. Russia slightly violently forced the American's lips open and let the water drip into the American's mouth. America bore an odd expression. Russia leaned up and saw the expression America wore. The rag fell on the dusty ground. Sorry. America requested, still slightly thirsty. Sorry? It's dirty. The rag is on the floor, covered in germs. Russia repeated, though he did comply with no complaint. And so, Russia grabbed the American and dragged him to an adjoint bathroom, lugging the other to the tub. The Slav dropped America in the tub, head under the tap, and opened the tap, water trickling into his mouth and all over his face. Russia? South Korea stayed near the open door. That's not how you waterboard somebody. Unless this is just... Fuck. Is this some sort of weird flirting or mating ritual? Ew, gross. The Korean left. Russia flushed and swore he could hear the ghost of USSR saying, "You better not give me short grandchildren, America." Chapter 12. After the Korean had left the room, leaving the dazed American and the Russian, Russia being tomato colored, no, even redder than a tomato, sitting on the floor, a rosy ray of light shone through the window, indicating the night had been replaced by day, and that the next country meeting was now in no less than 2 days, counting today. Now, with that description, which, in my opinion, is confusing as hell, is finished, I have one question. What the flickering fuck is redder than a tomato? And don't you dare say fire truck. Or petite volia rose. That's a French joke. It apparently means little red car. Anyways, carrying on, America, quite dazed, but having a naturally flirtatious habit when it came to these sorts of situations, slowly and feebly sat up, ignoring the small protests from Russia using his hands to hold America down to rest, turned to face Russia and kissed him. However, Russia pulled back. America pouted, clearly sad that Russia didn't kiss him back. He was also sad because a nagging suspicion that Russia had lied when he admitted that he loved him gained strength. Russia hesitated, then put his hands on America's cheeks. Russia pulled the adorable, pouting face forwards, and eventually America leaned forwards as well. The American kept leaning forwards until the two's lips met. Russia had really not expected their first real kiss, where him and America both consented for a kiss, with clear minds and thoughts, to be in his bathroom with a puddle of water pooled around the two. And maybe, just maybe, a few drops of blood from the former injuries, such as scratches that had not been bandaged up yet, on their shirt sleeves and on pale white bathroom tiles. But, of course, nobody is capable of predicting the future, eh? And then, when the need of a silly, stupid, idiotic thing called air grew too strong to resist, the two former enemies pulled away. Russia was the first to speak, of course. So, are we dating now? America, for a change, stared at Russia, calling Russia an imbecile with his eyes. No. Russia was immediately sad, like a sad puppy with a frown larger than the universe taking place on his face. He clearly hadn't caught on to the sarcasm. You bitch! Of course we're dating, you son of a gun! Exclaimed America, leaping back on Russia, initiating a round 2 for kisses. 2 days later. Here's a quick resume of the events that transpired between those 2 days. Tons of kisses. The kisses had started once or twice per hour and gradually grew to 8 or 7 per hour, 'cause Russia hadn't been shown love like this before. Also, Russia was still slightly uncomfortable asking or starting a kiss in a direct manner, so he made up excuses to be kissed, like cut his finger on a slip of paper. He would have America kiss him to make him stop complaining and destroying the evil paper, and if he was working, he wouldn't go to bed unless America kissed him. America easily caught on whenever Russia wanted a kiss and quickly complied, even if there was no request for a kiss made by the Russian using words. Sleeping together. America had insisted on being cuddled by Russia, and when Russia had tried declining, America handcuffed himself back to Russia. Handcuffs. As I said before, the very first night they had officially gotten together, America wanted to sleep with Russia, but Russia declined. So, with brash thinking, America put the handcuffs back on his and Russia's wrists. Deals. Russia had America promise to not talk about their current relationship status just yet. He didn't want the Asian countries babbling about it everywhere on social media. So, anyways, once the two walked inside the meeting room, NATO pulled them to the side and put the two in a room where EU was waiting. EU got up without a word, and using a spare key, cause the original was eaten by Nikitan, the chicken, and uncuffed the two. With quite good acting skills, Russia sighed in relief, clapping America violently on the back. America shot a glare at Russia, clearly slightly hurt. Then the two walked out, America nodding at EU as a thanks. Russia thanking EU in the utmost gratitude, but without letting any emotions pass through like a proper Russian could. In the hall, after checking that nobody would see, Russia pulled America into a nearby maintenance closet. "That wasn't a bit overdoing it, you bastard," America hissed, his back still slightly in pain. Russia made sure the closet door was shut closed and hugged America tight, whispering, "I'm sorry, my mekrasnien American. Please forgive me." The Russian translates to lovely American. America blushed, just a bit. After all, even if he only understood the word American, and Russia's mother tongue was beautiful. Don't tell Russia the American thinks that, though. America moved to kiss Russia, but thought better. Russia, noticing the lack of the kiss, let out a whine. A manly whine, mind you. "No, ask," America instructed, as if he were telling a dog to roll over or shake his hand with a paw. Russia bit his lip. Looking down at the shorter country, Russia let out a shaky sigh. "Последняя меня, пожалуйста." America frowned, not understanding. "English, please?" Russia repeated what he had said, only this time it was in English and not Russian. "Kiss me, please?" America giggled at the please, 'cause Russia's voice had wavered uncertainly at that part. Complying to the Slav's request, America got on his tippy toes and kissed Russia. After their little exchange and talk, The two walked out quickly and made their way to the meeting room and behaved as they usually did, just without the hostile insults and glares that were usually custom to the meetings. Of course, America had been patted down for firearms this time, and NATO and UN had kept a rather close eye on the capitalists' and communists' behavior towards each other. At the end of the meeting, UN had determined that the handcuffs were not needed for the next month, and the two countries, America and Russia, left the building together. This time, Russia and America went to the American household, and not the Russian household. The states had remarked the more friendly than usual behavior between Russia and America, as Saskatchewan and Ontario, who had snuck over the border to play with some of the states, Toronto had followed Ontario just because and played with the states and cities as well. The three Canadians had also noticed the pleasant atmosphere between the two. And there was no denying that Russia and America were together when Toronto witnessed the two kissing. He also took a picture and sent it to Montreal. Shush, that's not important. Anyways, Toronto questioned the two. How did you both get together and so friendly with each other now? Asked with his soft voice. But don't let his soft voice mistaken you. Toronto is quite the hyperactive child most of the time. And the response, answered in sync by America and Russia, was handcuffs. And that's all we have today. I hope you've enjoyed. That has been the whole series, all packed into one video. Now, what's coming next? Oh, we're going to be reading So What If Our Dads Are Enemies by GachaGurlDoesArt, who is on the server. And it's been requested by a commenter, so we're going to be reading it. It's 10 chapters. The thing that's after that is 40 chapters. Y'all are going to kill me one of these days. But I love y'all, so I'm going to be doing it. And after that, I'm going to try and do some commenter requests. It'll be in order in which I got them, which means if I finish the book I'm working on, which is Stars and Moonflowers in Our Garden, before the end of Take 2, then I will be reading that because it was requested before what one of you requested. So, you know, because Lucid likes to show up and is just like, I have book request. Take. They have another request, but that author is not responding to me. So, I don't have permission. I don't know if I'll get permission. So, it is what it is. And that's all I've had for you today. Please join the Discord. It's linked down in the description. We have a lot of fun. And that's all I have. Talk to you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. I don't know. I hope you've enjoyed this. Have a nice rest of your day, night, or whatever it is for you. Just enjoy your time. And I will see you tomorrow.